With gas prices gushing close to $4 a gallon nationwide, there is a push in D.C. to ease the way for more drilling in the Gulf and off both coasts. The House is set to take up 3 bills on the issue this week alone. A few minutes ago, Treasury Secretary Mr. Geithner, speaking to the Investment Company Institute, which represents the mutual fund industry, said higher gas prices not translating into higher inflation. Joining us now, Republican Congressman Charles Boustany of Louisiana. Congressman, let's get right into this. The Treasury Secretary maintains that there's no connection between higher gas prices and inflation. Does he have it right?
Well, that's economist speaking. And look, it hits every single family in the pocketbook. That's the bottom line on this. And so, yes, we got a real problem. As gasoline prices go up, it hurts families. It takes away from their other discretionary spending. This is a real problem, especially for people on fixed income. So it is inflationary. And if you keep in mind, with the price of oil going up, oil is used to make plastics and many other items across our entire spectrum. So we are going to see higher prices across the board if this continues.
Well, and we're already seeing higher prices. You know, I don't care what Geithner says to the mutual fund industry. We already, I mean, across, whether you're talking about milk or you're talking, I mean, any food, transportation costs, and it really threatens to burgeon into something far bigger, a broader level of higher inflation across the board that could really sting not just individuals, but also corporations. Now, you're on record talking about how the solution to this problem of high oil prices is more drilling, but your critics say, hey, look, that is not going to fix the problem. There's not enough drilling that can to really bring down gas prices. What do you say to that?
Well, we need a more comprehensive energy policy, and the country's never had one. And the only thing worse than having no energy policy is having policies in place that actually make things worse. And that's what the president has done with the moratorium on drilling. We have, by the Department of Energy's own estimate, production of oil is will be down 240,000 barrels per day for 2011 and about another 200,000 barrels per day for 2012. This is going to have an impact. You know, I mean, is it a major impact like Saudi Arabia or something like that? No. But the bottom line is we ought to be expanding our own energy production here, which will help. And as we develop new shale deposits with the new technology that's available with hydraulic fracturing, we potentially could have a whole lot more oil available as well as natural gas, which can move us in a major direction away from foreign imports. Right. This is very important.
Well, it's also highly controversial. I want you to hear what Michael Bromwich had to say. He's from the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management about this desire to drill more. He said there is a real risk that we're going to end up unraveling and undoing many of the reforms we've worked so hard to do over the last 10 months. That's in the wake of BP. And that, he says, would be a tragedy. There's a feeling in the administration that we still have not recovered. We're still not on track after BP to ensure a safe industry. Are they right?
I think that's complete nonsense. I mean, if you look at the record, we've had an outstanding record in the Gulf of Mexico, with the exception of this BP spill, and that was because guidelines had not been followed that are recommended. And we have had safe American energy production in the Gulf of Mexico going back many, many years, both in the shallow water and deep water. And keep in mind that 90% of our American production is done by small independent companies. And shutting this down in the Gulf of Mexico made absolutely no sense. It's wrong. It's the wrong kind of policy.
Well, you know, the administration has other things they want to do with the oil industry, too, namely taking away tax breaks. They've got their focus on 9 tax breaks that amount to billions of dollars that they want to take away from the oil industry. And let's face it, they've probably got public sentiment behind them with gas prices as high as they are. What do you say? Should those tax breaks be taken away?
Keep in mind that the tax provisions the president is referring to are basically expensing issues for small independent companies. These items, these tax provisions do not affect in a big way the large companies, the Exxon Mobils, for instance, or the Chevrons of the world. But it will directly have a major impact on small independent companies that produce a lot of our oil in this country, because they won't be able to expense things and cash flow. This is a huge problem. It's it's basically distorting the facts on the ground as these businesses
But Congressman,
run.
some of these tax breaks sound like they really advantage larger companies, like the foreign tax credit, so that if you have revenues overseas that are taxed by foreign governments, you can expense that here. You don't have to. You can lighten your load when it comes to the tax department. Depletion allowance, domestic manufacturing deduction, intangible drilling costs. Certainly those impact more than just small drillers. Are any of those tax advantages that you would be willing to give away for the oil industry?
Well, first of all, with the foreign tax credit, that one does affect the large companies, the large multinational oil companies. But keep in mind that if we do that in this country, we're basically making U.S. headquartered companies less competitive than Sinopec from a Chinese state-owned company or a Venezuelan company. Our companies will be even less competitive as they try to compete for shrinking global reserves because of political instability. It will not help one iota in bringing down oil cost or gasoline costs for the American people. On the intangible drilling cost, that one does not affect the big companies to the extent that it affects our small independent companies. Those companies will not be able to expense their wells because of the complexity of this. They will not be able to cash flow, and it will hurt. I can guarantee you, you'll see a lot of those companies go out of business, and it's going to hurt the American consumer. And so this is the wrong kind of policy.
All right, well, the debate will go on, and I'm sure we'll continue to have it, and hopefully you'll come back and talk about it more. Thanks, Congressman.